Hi, this is Cindy
And Michael.
from Part-Time Permies, and today we're going to go through how we made the door frame and attach the door.
This is probably the most complicated part of the whole project. We self-designed it. We don't think it's impossible at all to do, but it takes a little work, and you've got a variety of ways to do it. So we wanted to create a door frame that would come out as far as possible and sort of intersect with this beam. So we bent this first, and we matched it up to what would be the top frame. So we got it real close, and we wanted to maximize the amount of greenhouse. We knew we wanted to use a well-supported wall, and we also didn't want to interrupt our regular flow of traffic to our main doors, so that it wouldn't be uninviting. So that's how we positioned it here. We built it out of the galvanized or metal framing materials instead of wood, so that we don't have to worry about rot over the next number of years. And found some videos on piecing together interlocking double pieces, so it was nice and sturdy. And then we bought among the cheapest storm doors we could find when they were on special. So it was just barely over $100. The one thing we noted is some of the very cheapest storm doors, they don't have glass and screen, and you can't move them up and down. We want to be able to put the air intake probably at the top, but we want to have the option to move it up and down. So we did select a one step up.
Now, I think most of them actually had the top, so you could open it from the bottom up, but not from the top down. So we were looking for that feature.
And we're concerned about summer ventilation. If we haven't opened up and it gets really hot in there, we want to be able to maximize ventilation, not kill things off. Now, if you have an old storm door that you're happy with, if we had a little bit more time, I'm sure we could have gone to a used or like a restore or something and found a very, very inexpensive and cut $100 out of the project. But we wanted to work with a high quality door that we knew was going to install properly and not have to mess with it.
That was the first strip to get attached, really.
About 1.5 inches off of this brick. We can obviously set that one and we'll have to level it. That way we can kind of go through the middle of this, but we'll site it based on these levels. Going to the mortar because it's a lot. These bits aren't good enough that I'm, at this point, I don't think I'll get through the brick.
And you put a furring strip behind it?
I did. I put a piece of pine in there. I wasn't sure with all the door connections how much we would be tapping into this, and while it will hold pretty strong, just to have an extra something to put in, like, I put some stronger screws in here, make sure it goes into the wood, make sure that the the Tapcons out here have even more support, that we don't collapse this in. So we built this frame based on standards for putting in heavy interior doors. So if you had like a solid oak door type thing, this is the model of how it's typically built, and they do frequently put a strip of wood in there. Alright, so we did a little more work and a little more research on how we want to get our door frame secured, because we know we have a good strong secure point on our brick wall, which is where our hanging side is, but the rest of the frame is going to be only modestly secured. So I did a little looking at, because I've worked a lot with the metal studs, and I found ways to do a double boxed top, which is for a stronger, heavier door set. And we're just doing that because of our anchor points. So instead of just laying in a piece like this, we're going to turn down these flaps and anchoring them to the next, to the two studs at the right height and level. We're going to box it. So we've made two of these. These are 36 and between a 1/16 and a quarter, because our door opening requirement is 36 1/8 to 36 3/8. So we have two of these. These flaps will bend down. And then I have two that are the same length, but they don't have the flaps. It was also recommended to cut a little bit of a concave in here. It just helps things fit in better. I used tin snips for it. We got some old tin snips that are working all right, but not great. And well, you should probably wear some gloves. It's pretty sharp, or just be careful. What we're doing is, so I have one piece, because these studs have knockouts for wiring and such. I cut one in the middle that's going to be have no holes in it. This is going to be our front facing to the exterior. The other ones, it doesn't matter too much. They're all within the greenhouse area, so it's okay. So this is going to be front facing. This is going to be back facing. These two will be together, top and bottom facing. So this, that height. That's a cut point that gives us just enough room above that slot to be helpful. Good. Which can keep 70-mile-an-hour winds off. I don't have these set up to box.
Right. So how do you connect them?
Could have boxed them, but what are you doing with this? Well, that's not original. No, I'm not going to do that. You want like a 2x4, it's pretty strong. It doesn't matter how light it is. We put in some tap cons with just some basic braces here, so it's real sturdy. Fill some gaps and kind of make a good anchoring strip. We did use some PVC trim. That again, same thing, it's not going to collect moisture. It's a closed cell foam type finishing strip, and we just tacked that in there. They were straight pieces. We just bent them over with the curve of the conduit, and then using the anchoring holes and metal screws tapped it in just to hold them down. It's really firm. You could I don't know if we're 100-mile-an-hour wind proofed or not, but we're probably not far off of it. A pretty good gust is not going to lift anything in here, I'm pretty certain. And also, by anchoring this side, it just gave a little more, even though we feel like we're pretty supported, it gave a little more support up here. So there's, with the door opening and closing, there isn't going to be any movement. Frame was about an inch too high at the bottom. I set it on the higher gauge for the directions because of ice and things. We have a little downslope, so for this I wanted to make sure we had enough clearance. We ended up with a solid inch or so more than we wanted, but we ended up putting in a weather strip, and we put in a little higher one than a bottom one to try and prevent some of that heavy draft from coming in. So we think those went in pretty well. And then we decided to put, because it's a hollow frame, took a little bit of construction insulation, the
Foam insulation.
foam insulation, and blew a can of that in around. It's always hard to tell if you got the whole thing filled. The problem is I've blown up door frames in the past.
So you don't want to fill it too much.
You know, you don't fill it all the way. You actually fill it about halfway. And it's really easy to overfill it, and then it just starts blowing out the door frame, and then you're really in a mess because you got to redo the whole thing. So we think we have enough in there, about one big can to cover and just stop some of the airflow, because there's some holes, and also just the cold metal would be conduction of air and cold weather easier than some of the other things. So,
So that's basically how we installed the door frame and the door, which was the hardest part and probably most expensive part of the whole project. The door itself with framing material and door probably cost about $200. The next video will be to put up the framing of the entire greenhouse with the conduit piping, and then setting up the plastic on top of that, and that wraps up the entire series. So be on the lookout for the next video within a week, and we'll see you then.